What is going on, college basketball fans? Welcome back to another video, and today we have my official 2025 March Madness predictions. We have done so many bracket predictions this year, been coming out with the content all season long, and it is finally here, the official main bracket that I will be going on this year. I will warn you, if you're looking for a super chalked bracket, this is not where to come. I do think a lot of the one seeds are strong this year and are the main teams that are going to be national championship contenders, but I do like to pull some upsets, so you're not going to find all chalk here. I like to try to find some realistic upsets in there, so I'm ready to get started. Just want to say subscribe if you guys are new. We have a ton of other college basketball content here on the channel, a ton more coming before we get to round one on Thursday, and we will be live streaming a watch and long on Thursday for the first round of games. So subscribe, hit that like button if you guys enjoy, and comment down below your champion, or if you want to go a little bit further, comment down your Final Four. I love to see your guys' Final Fours down in the chat, especially now that we have an official bracket. So Auburn versus either Alabama State or St. Francis, PA. You already know we are going with Auburn, of course. Auburn, super solid team. They've been struggling recently, 2-3 in the month of March. That is the coldest spurt that they've been on all season long. They have a ton of veterans on this team, including Chad Baker-Mazara, who is getting close to 30, pushing it a little bit there, and he still has another year of eligibility, by the way, and that is not just me making jokes. He actually does. Janai Broom down low, who is one of the best players in the country, both offensively and defensively, and they have a ton of other guards. Miles Kelly, Tahad Pettiford, who is a freshman, along with all these other seniors. They are deep. They are very good on both sides of the ball, including the top offense in the country. Louisville versus Creighton. This is one where Louisville was very severely underseeded. They should not have been an 8 seed. I actually had them as a 5. I thought that they would get probably a 6. I was being really generous with them with a 5, but I thought they deserved it. I thought they were going to come in about a 6 or minimum a 7. To see them pop up as an 8 on the Selection Sunday reveal was very surprising. But don't sleep on Creighton, guys, either. Don't pick Louisville just because they are underseeded. I kind of want to do that because Chucky Hutburn and Terrence Edwards are super good guards who can lead their teams to wins, and they are a good shooting team, but Creighton's a good shooting team as well, and they have an anchor down low in center Ryan Cockburner. This is not going to be an easy game for either of these teams, and the Big East isn't that strong this year, but neither is the ACC, and I think both of these teams might be better than the 8-9 line. I am going to go with Creighton. I could see Louisville getting that one done, but Pat Kelsey is first season as Louisville's head coach, whereas Creighton, they got coach Greg McDermott there, who has proven himself in March before. I think that is an underrated aspect when picking this game. They also have a senior point guard in Stephen Ashworth, who is going to be a big piece in this game. Jemiah Neal, who is going to be an all-around player for Creighton, and also Jackson McAndrew, the freshman, who is a really good shooter. He's been playing kind of like that Baylor Shireman role. If he can step up, I think Creighton's going to win that game. Next up, we have what is going to be a very popular 12/5 upset pick in Michigan versus UC San Diego. I wasn't that sold on Michigan at all. I know that they did just win the Big Ten tournament, and if it wasn't for that, I was not going to be sold on Michigan whatsoever. I was actually probably going to have them lose first round. But they have been playing a lot better recently, and Trey Donaldson has been a super clutch player for them down the stretch of the Big Ten tourney, and they win close games. They have played in a lot of close games this year, and they have won most of them. And again, it comes down to coaching. Dusty May is an excellent coach, and this seems like a trap game. And I love UC San Diego. I want to give them some props because it is not a bad pick if you do decide to go with this. I like some of the 12/5 matchups more. I just think because Michigan, they're hot. They're a well-coached team by Dusty May. I don't want to quite pull the trigger on them. They have Tate Jones, who is an amazing player for UC San Diego, averaging almost 20 points per game, 5 and 3. Also Tyler McKee, great shooter, and also Hayden Gray, another great shooter on UC San Diego. They can shoot the ball, score the ball a lot, and they could just straight out outscore Michigan. I wouldn't be surprised, but I can't pull a trigger on it. I want to. I'm going to pull the trigger on some other 12/5s that I like. Texas A&M versus Yale. Not pulling the trigger on this one. Yale did pull a 13/4 upset last year over an SEC team, and it was Auburn last year. They could do the same against Texas A&M. I could definitely see that happening. It wouldn't be a horrible pick whatsoever to try to do that, but I do think that this Texas A&M defense is going to be able to stop Yale on offense, and even though they do have John Paulkitis, I do think that Texas A&M will be able to win, even if Wade Taylor is putting up a lot of shots. He has the ultimate green light. He's going to be shooting the ball. Also, Zurich Phelps down there. But Texas A&M is also a very good rebounding team, and I think they're going to be too big, too athletic, too good at rebounding and defense to be able for Yale to be able to upset them. Next up, we have Ole Miss versus San Diego State or North Carolina, and let's hope that San Diego State is going to be able to knock off North Carolina. As many of you guys know who are already subscribed to the channel, I am a West Virginia fan, and I cannot believe that North Carolina and Xavier both got in over West Virginia, who is 6-10 in quad 1 games, and North Carolina and Xavier have a combined 1 quad 1 win on the season, or a combined 2 quad 1 wins on the season. They have 1 each. And I think San Diego State is going to beat North Carolina. That is going to be a very good game, though. But I do think that the winner of that game can upset Ole Miss. I know they have Chris Beard as head coach, who has had a good history in March. This is his first time getting there with Ole Miss, and I do think they could win. They do have Sean Padula at point guard, who has been there before with Virginia Tech, and also Malik Dia, who has really stepped up for them as kind of a bigger guy. But I'm going to go with San Diego State. I'm going to pick San Diego State here to beat North Carolina and also beat Ole Miss there in the first round. I could see North Carolina doing the same thing, which is why I'm comfortable picking this 11 seed, even though we don't know who it is yet until after Dayton. I think either of these teams have a good shot at Ole Miss. Iowa State versus Lipscomb. I thought about this because Keyshawn Gilbert, if you guys haven't heard already, Keyshawn Gilbert, one of the really good guards for Iowa State, is going to be out for the entire tournament. And Lipscomb is a team that I did think about taking 14/3. It would be a pretty massive upset, but I still think Iowa State has too much. Between Curtis Jones and Milan Momcilovic, I think that those two are going to be shooting lights out. I don't know if they can make a Final Four push anymore, but I do think that they can go pretty deep into the tournament. Before we get into our next pick, I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, which is Rocket Money. I've signed up for so many subscriptions to watch college basketball games or to just watch sports in general that I would still be paying for on a monthly basis right now if Rocket Money didn't show me that I was paying for them. Rocket Money is an all-in-one personal finance app that helps you manage your subscriptions, lower your bills, and just straight up manage your money better. Once you connect your bank account after you download the app, Rocket Money will identify all of your subscriptions and put them in a single list for you to pick and choose which ones you want to cancel and which ones you might want to keep. I know that after college basketball season ends, I'm going to have to make some tough decisions because Peacock, I really only got to watch a couple random Big Ten games this year. It's probably going to go, but ESPN Plus, I might want to keep for some other sports. But the ones that you do want to cancel, Rocket Money can help you do that in just a few taps. Take control of your finances today by clicking my link for Rocket Money to get a free trial, and go to rocketmoney.com/Daniology or click the link that is in the top of the description. Thank you so much, Rocket Money, for sponsoring this video. Our next matchup, we do have Marquette versus New Mexico. This is a very fun 7 versus 10 matchup. I like a lot of the 7-10s and the 6-11 matchups. Those are some of my favorite matchups for this year's March Madness. I do think a lot of these teams can make a deep push. And for Marquette versus New Mexico, I am going to go with Marquette. I do trust Cam Jones a lot in that one. And Cam Jones versus Donovan Dent, those are two of the better players really in this tournament. And both of their whoever shows up for their team is going to be the difference maker in that one. And I'm going to trust Marquette. Next up, we got Michigan State versus Bryant. I'm going to go with Michigan State in this one. Just too good on defense, forcing a ton of turnovers, a ton of depth. They don't get recognized for their depth enough. They have so many players who can come in and give Izzo some valuable minutes. They have great connections with each other, great team chemistry that I just love. They have athletes on this team that can catch lobs. and Jace Richardson is a freshman who has really broken out, and also Trey Holloman has come in and really lit it up lately for Michigan State in times where they've really needed it. I really like Sparty this year. Now, let's go over to this East region where Duke is our top seed, and they'll be going up against either American or the Mount. And sadly, the only Mountaineers that will be in this tournament, Duke is going to win. Next up, we got Mississippi State versus Baylor, and I was streaming making some brackets last night after the selection Sunday reveal and the bracket got released. A lot of people were picking Baylor, and I do think overall they probably have the better team. I worry about Baylor's defense a ton, but this is another very 50-50 one. Just like Louisville and Creighton, this is the hard one to pick. I am going to go with Mississippi State. I'm going to trust Coach Chris Jans here. Baylor hasn't been anything special lately, and although Mississippi State has been inconsistent, Chris Jans has been able to get a win in March Madness, whether it was with New Mexico State when they pulled off an upset 12-5, or was that a 13-4 when they beat UConn? Or last year when he got a win with Mississippi State and they returned their star, Josh Hubbard. I think it's going to be enough. Give me Mississippi State. I do worry about them rebounding against Baylor. Norchad Omier is a great rebounder. They have another veteran point guard in Jeremy Roach. Both of those players have played in Final Fours in the past, so I do worry about that. They have a ton of experience along with a freshman star in VJ Edgecombe. I'm kind of changing my mind a little bit. I'm going to go Baylor. I'm talking myself into it. Baylor has the better talent on their team. They should win this game. And Scott Drew is no slouch when it comes to coaching. I'm going to go with Baylor. Of course, he won a national championship. Oregon, Liberty all the way. As soon as I saw this matchup, I was thinking Liberty. Liberty is a very good 12 seed out of the Conference USA that I am super, super high on. They shoot the ball really well, and they've been against some good competition early in the non-con this year already. I like Liberty a lot. Give me the Flames to move on. Arizona versus Akron. I thought about pulling the trigger on Akron as well. I decided not to. I decided to go with Arizona. I think they're a little bit more consistent. Caleb Love has been playing a lot better this year, not shot chucking as much. And also KJ Lewis and Jaden Bradley, more good guards who are veterans. I think Arizona is going to have enough to get it done. BYU versus VCU. A matchup that I think whoever wins this game has potential to go very far in the tournament this year. And the only problem is, am I going to pick the right one? Because I think that both these teams have a ton of potential, and both of these teams are coming into the tourney very hot. And I really could go either way, but I am going with BYU because I do think that they do have the advantage when it does come to the front court. I think that their front court defense especially, they have a shot blocking anchor that could really disrupt there against VCU, and these teams are close. These teams are close for a 6-11 matchup. It's very close, but I do really like BYU's front court in this one to be able to make some noise and dominate on the boards defensively, not allowing much action in the paint. And also BYU can shoot the ball, get out and run. They have great playmakers. It's going to be tough, but I think BYU is the right pick, but it's super tough. It's going to be whoever shows up. I love this VCU team so much. It hurts me to have them lose in the first round. That is my favorite game of the first round. I cannot wait for that game to be played. Wisconsin versus Montana. I'm not very high on Montana at all. I thought they were going to be a 15 seed. I was very surprised to see the Grizzlies there as a 14. Wisconsin should be able to handle them pretty easily. St. Mary's versus Vanderbilt. Mark Byington was the coach of James Madison last year where they pulled off the 12-5. He's now on head coach of Vanderbilt. Look out for them, but I think St. Mary's has a good team this year that is going to get a win in March after losing to Grand Canyon last year in the first round. Alabama versus Robert Morris. I got to go with Alabama 100% there. Just one of the best offenses in the country. Next, we have Florida versus Norfolk State. I am going with Florida. I love Norfolk State. I think they're a great 16 seed, but Florida is one of the best teams in the country. I don't see them pulling off that upset. UConn versus Oklahoma. This is one where I think a lot of people are probably going to go with UConn, especially when they look at what the Oklahoma Sooners have been able to do recently. UConn is probably the more well-rounded team, whereas Oklahoma really depends on their freshman Jeremiah Fears to be able to carry them. I am going to go with UConn, the back-to-back champs, but I do think that Oklahoma could pull off a sneaky one there and bust a few people's brackets, because I guarantee you over 50% of people are going to pick UConn. I think it is probably the safer choice, which is why I'm going to go with it. But Oklahoma can definitely win that game, and it could bust some people's brackets. Memphis versus Colorado State. This is another 12/5 that I did really want to take, because Colorado State is the only bid thief this year, and they are red hot heading into the tournament, especially with their star player Nick Clifford. But I think people are sleeping on Memphis. They don't have good analytics, but they played a good non-con, and they have great players on this team, and they've played in a lot of close games in the American this year, but guess what? Most of them they've won. And I think playing through PJ Haggerty, they got Tyrese Hunter, who can light it up from three. He's just got to get hot. Also, Kobe Rogers as well. And Dane Danger down low. I think Memphis can win this game 100%. I am going to pick Colorado State in some of my brackets, and I already have. But for my main one, I am going to go with Memphis. I feel really good about them in that matchup. I think they have a better all-around team, and I think it is the safer choice. Next up, we got Maryland versus Grand Canyon. And Grand Canyon, Ray Harrison returning, Tyon Grant Foster returning. They pulled off an upset last year against St. Mary's and almost beat Alabama in the second round. They were in that game, man. They played them very competitively, and now they have Jacoby Coles on their team as well. So I could definitely see this Grand Canyon team being able to pull it off. The problem is the Twin Towers down low between Derek Queen and Julian Reese. Are they going to be able to get to the paint and score and rebound with this team? And Jacoby Gillespie and also Rodney Rice are going to have to shoot the ball very well to keep up with this Grand Canyon team. And I don't know if many people are going to do this, but I'm going to pull the trigger on this 13/4 upset. I think Maryland could be the team to go out in the first round this year. And I'm honestly between these two Big Ten teams on the 4 line right here as who I wanted to go with on the 13/4. It was either High Point over Purdue, Grand Canyon over Maryland. I feel like High Point over Purdue is going to be the more popular pick. But I do think, of course, they have the better point guard in Braden Smith, who was in the national championship game last year, has a ton of experience, and had an insane year this year. And I'm going to trust him. I can go ahead and make that pick, I guess, since I'm pretty much telling you who I'm going to pick, and pick Purdue over High Point. And go with Grand Canyon, who, even though Tyon Grant Foster has kind of had a down year this year, I think he can still play big in the tournament. And this team isn't just him. They have Jacoby Cole. They have also Ray Harrison, who is an excellent point guard. And I think that play is going to be huge. And they have shown that they can compete with some of these better teams. And I think Maryland is a beatable team. And I'm going to take Grand Canyon there in a pretty big upset. Next up, Missouri and Drake. And this is a tough one as well, because I could see this one going either way, and it really is offense versus defense right here. And I'm going to go with the defense. I'm going to go with Drake. They are the hotter team. Missouri has really cooled off. Have they peaked too early this season? They definitely might have. And unfortunately for Missouri, they have a ton of really good shooters. Mark Mitchell is an excellent player. I really would like to see Mark Mitchell versus JT Toppin in the second round. That's still possible. But I am going to go with Drake. I just trust their defense. I think Bennett Sturts is going to hit some big shots down the stretch of these games, and I am going to take Drake to win. And I am also going to take Texas Tech over UNC Wilmington. I did think about that one a little bit because Texas Tech does have some injury questions. But if they are fully healthy, they are going to be a very strong 3 seed and one of maybe the best 3 seed. Who are other 3 seeds? I'd have them better than Kentucky. Iowa State is injured. Yeah, I think Texas Tech might be the best 1 seed if they are fully healthy. Iowa State is not fully healthy. I'm going to take Texas Tech in that one. Next up, we got Kansas versus Arkansas. I'm going to go with Kansas. Kansas versus Arkansas here. But this is a rematch from the second round a couple of years ago where Kansas lost in the second round as a 1 seed to 8 seed. Was it 8 seeded or 9 seeded Arkansas? But that was a big game there by Devo Davis. Shout out Devo Davis. Arkansas won. New coach there, Arkansas, completely new roster. John L. Davis could do the same thing to this Kansas team. Arkansas does have the better guards, but Kansas plays good defense, and they also are going to play through their bigs, and they have the better front court in Hunter Dickinson and also KJ Adams, Flory Badunga off the bench. I am going to go with the Jayhawks in that one. And then St. John's over Omaha. I love this Omaha team. I don't think that they can pull off an upset over St. John's. Well coached. Great defense. Going to be a tough 2 seed for a 15 seed to beat a team like that. Houston versus SIUE, Southern Illinois University of Edwardsville. Give me Houston. And then I am going to go with Gonzaga over Georgia. I do like this Georgia team. I think that they are a sleeper to get by Gonzaga. But Gonzaga, veteran senior point guard and one of the best playmakers in the country, if not the best playmaker in the country, is of course in Ryan Nembhard, and I'm going to trust him in this great front court between Graham Ike, Breenan Huff, and Ben Gregg. I really like this Gonzaga team. Khalif Battle on the wing, Nolan Hickman on the wing. Very, very good 8 seed. And the analytics love Gonzaga. I like Gonzaga. One of the best offenses in the country. Look out for the Zags. Next up, Clemson versus McNeese. And I'm not going to go with McNeese. I am going to go with the Clemson Tigers. I think Clemson's really good. And I do think it is possible for McNeese to get it done. But like last year, I don't know if this is the right matchup for them. They don't play in that good of a league. They play in the Southland Conference. Clemson has Chase Hunter, Ian Shefflin, both who have been into the Elite Eight last season. And I think Chase Hunter is going to be a big-time player this March. And he could be one to take Clemson back to the Sweet 16 or back to the Elite Eight. It's have a team that I don't necessarily see losing to a 12 seed. So I got to go with Clemson here in this one. Next up, this bottom half of the bracket here from Illinois down is my least favorite part of the bracket because I don't see much room for upset potential. Like I could see Troy upsetting Clemson potentially, Wofford upsetting Tennessee potentially. Am I going to pull the trigger on any of those upsets? I don't think I can. But if anything happens out of this region crazy, it's going to be from Troy or Wofford. I don't see UCLA, Utah State, really Illinois or Texas Xavier making much noise. But I am going to go with Texas over Xavier and Texas over Illinois, which is kind of a bold move, to be honest. It definitely is. But I don't trust Illinois that much. Texas and Xavier, though, some of the last teams in, no, I got to go with Illinois. Even though I'm not big on Illinois this year, I am going to take them over either of those teams. And then I am going to go with Kentucky over Troy. Even without Jackson Robinson, get Lamont Butler back, beef up that defense, Ortega Owe. They still got Kobe Brea. They still got a ton of really good guards on that team. Kentucky could make a run here with this. This kind of seems like a weaker bottom half of this region. Kentucky could definitely make a run. UCLA versus Utah State. I'm going to go with UCLA in that defense versus Utah State's offense. Actually, no, I am going to go with Utah State. I'm going to trust them in their offense here in this one. Ian Martinez here in this Utah State team. They need to get a win in March Madness. I'm going to trust them here. Maybe I shouldn't. I feel like Utah State just haven't been able to get it done. But this year I am going to trust them, and I am going to have Tennessee over Wofford here in this one. Wofford is a team that could become America's team. They play out of the SoCon, which has been a very good conference for March Madness the last so many years. But I think Tennessee one of the best defenses in the country, a senior point guard in Zakai Ziegler, one of the better shooters in the country in Chaz Laner, Gainey, who is a very good player as well, super underrated. I see no reason for Tennessee to lose to a 15 seed. I do think it could be closer than expected, and I know some people are going to pull the trigger on that upset because Tennessee hasn't been the best in March Madness, but they made the Elite Eight last year. Senior point guard, number one defense. I can't have them lose there to Wofford. Can't do it. Next, Auburn versus Creighton. I am going to have Auburn move on. I think Louisville would be a tougher matchup for Auburn, but Louisville will have to get past Creighton first. I actually kind of like Creighton in that matchup. So give me Creighton and then give me Auburn over Creighton. Michigan versus Texas A&M. That's a tough one here. I think in this matchup, I kind of want to go with the team who has been hot, and that's Michigan, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to go with Michigan in this one. But I do think Texas Tech has the better defense. Michigan more well-rounded. They just play so good in close games. I just worry about that pick because Michigan could very well lose to UC San Diego, and then that's a Sweet 16 team that is knocked out. But I'm gonna go with Michigan. I'm gonna trust it. I think they can get there. They're hot after winning the Big Ten tournament. They were cold entering it and was able to make a run all the way and win it. But they've been winning close games all year long, and I think that's what this would be, is a close game. Dusty May is just a phenomenal coach, and he's gotten FAU to the Final Four. I think he's going to have Michigan in the Sweet 16 here. Then we got San Diego State versus Iowa State. And again, even without Keyshawn Gilbert, I still think this Iowa State team is very strong. Like I said, Momcilovic, Curtis Jones, great shooters. Down low, they still have Josh Jefferson, Deshaun Jackson, and they still have Tamin Lipsey, who is a very, very good point guard and a two-way point guard. He's going to really have to step up, but I can still see Iowa State making a pretty good run. We have Marquette versus Michigan State. And I got to go with Michigan State. You got to trust Izzo, especially when he has a team that is really coachable and has a ton of depth, and they have athletes on this team as well. I mean, Cohen Carr is going to catch some bodies this year in March Madness. He's going to catch one on Ben Gold. I can see it right now, the poster of Cohen Carr just dunking all over Ben Gold down low. Cam Jones is an excellent player. I think that he's going to have a big game in this one, but Michigan State just too good defensively, forces enough turnovers, gets the extra possessions, and closes it out in the end. Give me Sparty to move on. Then we do have Duke versus Baylor. I don't think Baylor is going to pull off that upset there. I really like this Duke team. They are top 4 in offense and defense. They're going to have Cooper Flagg back. They are going to be very tough to beat. Give me the Blue Devils to move on. Liberty and Arizona. This is going to be a little bit of an upset run here. I am going to take Liberty over Arizona. I like the path that Liberty has the potential to, and I've seen that draw for them, and I really liked it for them. They have a really good player in Caden Matheny, who's actually from my hometown. He's a very good shooter, and they just have a really good shooting team in general that I think could be a sleeper for a 12 seed. I think UC San Diego, of course, Colorado State, McNeese, I think they are all probably going to be the more popular upset picks over Liberty. But I really like Liberty over Oregon, and I think they can beat Arizona too. So we're going to have them to the Sweet 16. BYU and Wisconsin, I'm going to have BYU pull off the upset here. I really like John Tonje, and I really like John Blackwell as well. Very good players there, but BYU is a very, very hot team. And I know Wisconsin made it to the Big Ten championship, but before BYU did lose to Houston in the semifinals of the Big 12, they were on a big win streak, and they shoot the ball really well. Very well-rounded team. I like this BYU team a lot. I'm going to have them move on here to the Sweet 16. And then we do have St. Mary's versus Alabama. I'm going to have Alabama move on. Very much offense versus defense. If Alabama is missing a lot of shots and St. Mary's can get the rebounds and slow down the pace of the game and capitalize on their possessions, I really do think that St. Mary's can win. But if they get to turnovers, they get out and run, and they're making their threes early in the shot clock, St. Mary's won't have much of a chance. I am a Gale respecter. Let me know if you guys are Gale respecters down below in the comment section, but I got to respect the Tide as well. Made it to the Final Four last year. I got to have them here in the Sweet 16 again. Next, we have Florida versus UConn. The back-to-back national champions go down here to Florida. Florida is one of the best teams in the country. I do think UConn could give them a little bit of a run for their money. It would be a very shocking upset, but I could, if I squint just hard enough and lean my head to the left, I could maybe see UConn squeezing it out just because they have a lot of talent on their roster still, but I don't see it happening. I think Florida is just too good. Then we have Memphis versus Grand Canyon. And here again, I could see this 13 seed in Grand Canyon making it to the Sweet 16. I think I might have to pull the trigger on this one. Memphis is good, man. Jacoby Coles versus Dane Danger. That's going to be a matchup to see. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to pull the trigger. Grand Canyon makes it to the Sweet 16, and there will be a matchup against Florida. Tyon Grant Foster, Ray Harrison, and this awesome Grand Canyon team, coached by Bryce Drew, Scott Drew's brother, once again making some noise in March Madness for the second year in a row. This time they get 2 wins instead of 1 and make it to the Sweet 16. Then we got Drake versus Texas Tech, and I think I'm going to go with another upset here once again. I am going to go with the Drake Bulldogs over Texas Tech. This is just a similar matchup to me to the Missouri matchup. This is literally picture perfect, like very similar. And Texas Tech, who does have some question marks with injuries, Drake is going to play a defensive game. Texas Tech wants to get out and run, just like Missouri would. And Drake, could slow the game down, hit some big shots by Bennett Sturts, and Drake makes it back here to the Sweet 16, finally making some noise in March Madness with their new head coach, Ben McCollum. Then we got Kansas versus St. John's, and this is going to be a Zuby Ejiofor revenge game. He used to play on Kansas, now he's on St. John's, having a breakout season. He's going to dominate Hunter Dickinson in this former team, and that's going to be a huge difference maker. Also, this defense on St. John's is going to turn Kansas over a ton, and the Johnnies are going to the Sweet 16. Then we have so far all of our 1 seeds to the Sweet 16. Can Houston make it the 4th and get there here? They're going up against, in my opinion, the strongest 8 seed. Arguable because I do think that Louisville is another very good, strong 8 seed. But I'm going to take Gonzaga over Houston. And I know this is a crazy pick, but I like to pick some upsets. Houston is a top 4 team in the country, in my opinion. They have a top 4 chance to win it all. And that is with the other 3 1 seeds. They are so good defensively and really good offensively too, because they can shoot the ball this year. But all it takes is them to miss some shots and Gonzaga to be able to control this game and make their shots, because Gonzaga is a top 10 offense in the country. They can definitely put up some points if they just protect the ball. And they have one of the best point guards in the country who can protect the ball, who is the best at protecting it and also facilitating. So for those reasons, I do think Gonzaga also has the front court that can compete with Houston. To me, this isn't as insane as it may seem as just any 8-1 upset. Gonzaga has a chance in this one, and I'm going to take a chance on them. Clemson and Purdue is our next matchup, and this 5-4 matchup is going to be absolute cinema, because Chase Hunter, Braden Smith going to have some big games. Shiflin down low, mixing it up with Trey Kaufman, Wren. These are going to be awesome matchups, and like I said, I could really see this one going either way. I am going to go with Purdue to move on, though. I just feel like Braden Smith is just such a good point guard. I'm going to trust the good point guards in this region. Between Braden Smith and Ryan Nembhard is going to be a fantastic Sweet 16 matchup between those 2 elite point guards. Now, we got Illinois versus Kentucky. I do think Kentucky's defense has improved, but Illinois also turns the ball over a lot, which will help them. I think Kentucky's going to have too much offense. I've seen Illinois get blown out too many times to trust them past the round of 32. And honestly, if they had a better 11 seed going up against them, there's no way I would pick Illinois. So give me Kentucky to move on here to the Sweet 16. Then we got Utah State versus Tennessee. Again, I don't trust Utah State a lot at all. I am trusting them against UCLA, but past that, I cannot trust them. Tennessee made it to the Elite Eight last year. Another very good senior point guard in Zakai Ziegler that I trust a lot. So I am going to take Tennessee in that matchup to set up an SEC Sweet 16 matchup between Kentucky and Tennessee. Next, Sweet 16 matchups, we got Auburn versus Michigan. I am going to have to go with Auburn here in this one. I do think it is possible Michigan could pull off an upset there. I don't like the matchup. I don't think Michigan is going to be able to put up enough points against the number one offense in the country. So I am going to have to go with Auburn there in that matchup. They are just too freaking good. Too good, man. Too good. And Michigan is a team that has potential to lose in the first round. So I don't feel comfortable taking them any further than Sweet 16. Then we got Iowa State versus Michigan State. And even without Keyshawn Gilbert, I'm trusting this Iowa State team. I love this Iowa State team, and I think they are going to have enough to get by Michigan State because even without him, he's not really the best three-point shooter anyhow. He's more of a get to his spots in the mid-range, drive the ball. He can shoot, but he's not necessarily a great three-point shooter. With Momcilovic, Curtis Jones, they are going to have enough shooting. Tamin Lipsey is going to have to step up and knock a few down as well throughout this tournament if they are going to make a run. But I really love Josh Jefferson down low trying to make some noise. Maybe not so much against Michigan State, but on this little run, I definitely could see Iowa State go on. Josh Jefferson is going to have to play a massive, massive role. Now we do have Duke versus Liberty, and this is sadly where Liberty's run is going to have to come to an end. I just don't trust them any further than that, and definitely not against one of the top teams in the country in the Duke Blue Devils. I got to go with Duke here in this one. And then we do have BYU versus Alabama, and this is actually more interesting than you might think. Both these teams are very offensive, but I do think that BYU and Alabama have similar defensive front courts where they are going to be able to block some shots and have the athletes to be able to defend the paint a little bit. So that is where the difference comes in, or not really a difference. They're very similar in those reasons. And I do think that BYU has a chance in this one just to outscore Alabama, and I'm going to pick them in this one. And they are going to need some of these role players like Dallin Hall to step up big time. I think he has a big game against Alabama, and also I'm not super high on Mark Sears having another crazy March Madness tournament. I think he could, but is he going to lead them back to the Final Four? I'm not so sure. I think they're going to finish anywhere between losing in the Sweet 16 or losing in the Final Four. I don't think Alabama's going to win the championship this year, but how far can their offense carry them? And they're going up against another really high-powered offense that can shoot the ball crazy. Richie Saunders, Dallin Hall, they're going to have to step up. Catchings, Edgar Demon, very solid team. They like to get out and run as well, and I think that they can do enough to get by Alabama here in this one and make it to the Elite Eight as a 6 seed, knocking down the 2. Now, let's go to the bottom half. We have Florida, Grand Canyon. Unfortunately, this is where Grand Canyon's run is also going to have to come to an end. I got Florida making it to the Elite Eight. They are so darn good. I mean, between Walter Clayton Jr., Elijah Martin, Will Richard, Aberdeen. Down low, you got Alex Condon. Really good forwards on this team that are really good bigs on this team that are amazing at rebounding as well. I got to go with the Gators here in this one over Grand Canyon. Drake versus St. John's. However, I am going to have another upset here. I'm going to go with Drake over St. John's, and here's why. Both these teams play very similar. They have really good defense. Drake does not get enough credit for how good their defense is. Is it to the level of St. John's? Maybe. They're not too far behind, if not. And the key matchup, of course, is going to be RJ Lewis and Bennett Sturts. 2 amazing players that have both, in this case scenario, led their teams to the Sweet 16. And I think Drake could pull it off here again because they are the better three-point shooting team than St. John's. Also, in my opinion, and they can play a similar style to St. John's, so I don't feel like it is that crazy of an upset because I think the matchups say Drake has a chance in this one, and Bennett Sturts and RJ Lewis, whoever is winning that battle, I think their team is going to win the game. I'm going to take Bennett Starts as this year's March Madness hero who leads an 11-seeded Cinderella Drake team to the Elite Eight. This is finally Drake's year under new head coach Ben McCollum. Next, Gonzaga, Purdue. I talked about earlier, Ryan Nembhard versus Braden Smith. Really good front court on Gonzaga. They're going to have the defense to stop TKR. I'm going to take Gonzaga. I really like the Zags in that matchup. Then we got Kentucky versus Tennessee. And I know this is hard because I think Tennessee has the better team, and they definitely have the better defense. Kentucky has the better offense and the better shooting. Kentucky beat Tennessee twice already this season. It's tough to beat a team 3 times, but from what we've seen, I might have to go with Kentucky, but how far do I want to trust Kentucky to go? I think third time's the charm here. Rick Barnes gets this Tennessee team back to the Elite Eight for the second straight year. Senior point guard Zakai Ziegler playing defense, getting steals. Chaz Lanier needs to have a big game. Also with Gainey, they need this one, man. I think Tennessee has the better overall team. The only reason I think about taking Kentucky is because they already beat Tennessee twice this year. Third time's the charm. I got to go with the Vols. Then, Final Four matchup. We have our Elite Eight matchups are set. We have 1 seed Auburn versus 3 seed Iowa State. 1 seed Duke versus 6 seed BYU. We have 8 seeded Gonzaga versus 2 seeded Tennessee, and 1 seeded Florida versus 11 seeded Drake. I really like how the way that this bracket turned out. I know a lot of people are going to say I went a little bit too upset crazy with some of these runs, but this is exactly the type of runs that happen in March Madness, and if I'm going to go for close to a perfect bracket, I know I'm not going to get one. It's never happened before, but this is the way that I like to make my brackets. I do feel like all of these are somewhat realistic of upsets. This has been my favorite bracket I've made so far. I'm very happy that it is my main official bracket. So our first Elite Eight matchup, we have Auburn versus Iowa State. Of course, it is a rematch where Auburn did win on a Janai Broome tip-in buzzer beater. But in that game, Iowa State was winning throughout most of it. And I do feel like it is tough to pick Auburn to go super far, but at the same time, it's not. And here's why, is because Auburn is kind of cold right now. And out of all the 1 seeds, they are the coldest 1 seed, which is weird because they are the top overall seed in the tourney. So I do think that out of all the 1 seeds, you may look at the top overall one and say Auburn is the most likely one to lose before the Final Four. So that's pretty crazy. We already have Houston out, of course. But I am going to go with Iowa State. And I know Keyshawn Gilbert was huge in that first matchup against Auburn, and they're not going to have him this time. But I do still think Iowa State has the team and the play style that can beat Auburn. They just have to stop Auburn's runs. And if they can do that, they can definitely win. And I'm still going to trust Iowa State. Even without Keyshawn Gilbert, it is very scary for me to do this. Even with me knowing about the injury, but I trust them. I think they have a fantastic team. Tamin Lipsey is an excellent point guard who can lead this team. Josh Jefferson can get some buckets down low. He needs to step up. Tamin Lipsey is going to have to take some shots, though. He has to hit some big shots for this Iowa State team to do this. And also, Curtis Jones and Momcilovic are going to be massive. And I just think that they have the defense to slow down this Auburn team and to be able to win it. So I'm going to trust Iowa State here to make it to the Final Four. Duke versus BYU. However, I am going to have my first 1 seed lock into the Final Four. I am going to take the Duke Blue Devils. So we have 3-seeded Iowa State to the Final Four and 1-seeded Duke. I like this Duke team, especially if they get Cooper Flagg back. They won the ACC tournament without Cooper Flagg in the semis and in the championship game and half of the quarterfinal game. And they have great players around them, between Malach down low, who is an excellent freshman who can rebound, shot block, catch some lobs. Excellent piece to have on this Duke team. Then you have 2 freshman shooters, Isaiah Evans and Con Kneppel, Con Kneppel has really stepped up as a playmaker as well since Cooper Flagg has been out. So with Cooper Flagg back, that is only going to help them even more. Veteran players like Mason Gillis, who made the championship game last year with Purdue, and Tyrese Proctor, who has been on Duke here the last few years and is now a junior, I want to say. some veterans on this team who can really help them. And I like this Duke team. I didn't even mention Sion James, who is a huge role player for this team. I think they're going to be too much for BYU, and this BYU's Madness match here in the Elite Eight, and that is as far as they will go. 3 seed Iowa State and 1 seed Duke is in the Final Four so far. Then we have 1 seeded Florida versus 11 seeded Drake. This is unfortunately where Drake's run is going to come to an end. I can't, in my right mind, in my right conscience, pick Drake over Florida. I do really like the matchups for Drake throughout the tourney to get to the Elite Eight, but as far as over Florida to get to the Final Four, I cannot do it. Florida is just too darn good. Then we got Gonzaga versus Tennessee. And I am going to pick the 8-seeded Gonzaga team over Tennessee. Tennessee does not make their first ever Final Four, and Gonzaga gets back to the Final Four as an 8 seed behind this really good offense, and they put up a lot of points on Tennessee, and I think Khalif Battle is going to be a huge X factor for this team, and I think he's going to step up big time throughout the tourney. Him versus Chaz Lehner is going to be the key matchup in that one for sure. So we have 3 seed out of the South in Iowa State. We have 1 seed out of the West in Florida. We have 1 seed out of the East in Duke, and an 8 seed out of the Midwest in Gonzaga. I really love the way that this Final Four has turned out, and let's get down to it. So we have Florida, Iowa State. I am going to take Florida to the national championship game. I think this is, Keyshawn Gilbert, with him being out, it's tough to even put Iowa State in the Final Four, but I'm still so high on this team as being a two-way team. Can play both offense and defense really well. Better on defense, the top 10 defense. They have a top 20 offense, around 20. It might be top 25, but they're close to a top 20 offense. I really like this Iowa State team. If they're shooting the ball well, they can definitely get this far. They just need guys like Tamin Lipsey and Joshua Jefferson to really step up. I have no doubt in my mind that Curtis Jones and Momcilovic are going to shoot the ball very well throughout this tournament, but it's not going to be enough against this really good Florida team. Duke, Gonzaga, I am going to have Duke over Gonzaga in this one. I just feel like Duke and Florida are the 2 best teams in the country right now. It's really hard to pick against them. And this is my national championship game, guys. Duke and Florida. I think this is going to be a pretty popular one. If you guys watch a lot of basketball, you guys can really tell that these look like the 2 best teams in the country. Auburn has looked like it before, but in the month of March, they haven't. So I definitely think Auburn can win the national championship. But from what I've seen the last few games, they're 2-3 in their last 5 games. It's hard to pick them over teams like Florida and Duke, who have been really killing it. But Walter Clayton Jr., Elijah Martin, Will Richard versus guys like Cooper Flagg, Con Knipple, Sion James, Isaiah Evans. This is going to be a fantastic national championship game, and I am going to go with the Florida Gators to win it all, and that is because it's really hard to pick them and Duke right now, because historically, a coach has to get to the Final Four a time at least, or make a deep run in the tournament before he wins the national championship. And John Shire has done that. They were in the Elite Eight last year. Todd Golden really hasn't done that for Florida yet, but they have such a good team. I could see them still getting it this year, and that is why kind of all signs point to possibly Auburn winning the championship this year, because Bruce Pearl has been to a Final Four before, back in 2019. It's an interesting point, and I'm definitely going to have Auburn win in some of my brackets, but I like Florida and Duke as well. Both these teams can win it. I'm going to go with Florida to win it all over Duke in my national championship game. I definitely feel like this is going to be a high-scoring game. Even though both teams do have top 10 defenses, they also have top 10 offenses as well, and it's going to be a fantastic game. I'm going to go 166 total score, so that is about 83 points apiece. I feel like that is going to be about right. And as a tiebreaker, if somehow me and one other person do have a perfect bracket, that is my tiebreaker. So Florida over Duke national championship game. Let me know what you guys think about my bracket down below in the comment section. This is my official bracket predictions. Iowa State, Florida, Duke, Gonzaga. Let me know your guys' opinions, and let me know your guys' Final Fours down below in the comment section as well. Subscribe for more college basketball content, trying to get 10,000 subs. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching.